This situation keeps on getting crazier as a brand new report has dropped revealing some very interesting details surrounding the Toronto Maple Leafs plans with Mitch Marner surrounding a contract. We're going to break that down as well as discuss some rumors that are circulating surrounding a trade involving Mitch Marner and a very interesting forward. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, but before we get into it, we're proud to announce that this video is brought to you by Rentals.ca, who are proud supporters of Team Canada. And while they've been supporting our national team defend their home court in international competition, they've also been helping thousands of Canadians find their home floor all across the country, whether you're in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary, Halifax, Winnipeg, Mississauga, Edmonton, Victoria, St. John's, it doesn't matter, from coast to coast. Rentals.ca has a ton of options to find the perfect place and price for you.
Their website is clean and easy to use, and you can pinpoint exactly on the map where you want to move, finding all the options in your area. Find your home court with rentals.ca.
Yeah, check out the link in the pinned comment as well as the description down below. And again, thank you to Rentals.ca for supporting us, supporting Team Canada, and supporting you guys in finding the best rentals across the country. So again, check out the link in the pinned comment or the description down below. But there's a lot to go over today, and they're off. The Leafs obviously don't play again today. The schedule's been absolutely ridiculous. But what hasn't been ridiculous is the amount of rumors and reports and news that is going around, not just with the Leafs, but across the NHL surrounding trade talks and all these different things. It's the most trade buzz we've had in November in years, at least from what I can remember. And it doesn't stop now. We have some very interesting things to go over surrounding Mitch Marner. I want to start with this. And a couple different things. We're kind of talk about some trade reports as well as a report that dropped surrounding his future in Toronto. Let's start with the contract talks. The Leafs are favored to re-sign Mitch Marner, but the negotiations are likely to be difficult. The team appears to have an internal salary cap tied to Matthews' $13.2 million a year contract, which will play a major role in discussions. While the Leafs likely want to keep Marner's contract below that number, his camp will argue that the rising salary cap justifies a higher deal. So basically this dropped, and it's saying that the Leafs are very actively trying to re-sign Mitch Marner and that they are favored to re-sign him, whether it's throughout the season or when the season ends. But they're trying to get it in the $13 million range as opposed to what Mitch Marner wants, which seemingly is about $14 million. So maybe they come into some agreement in the middle. Seeing that, a contract in which Mitch Marner makes more than Austin Matthews might be hard to swallow for some fans out there. But what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think his camp is not, they're not necessarily incorrect in thinking that he should be making more because the salary cap is going up. That is a fact, right? But at the same time, in the Toronto Maple Leaf system, to be making more than Austin Matthews doesn't make sense for any player right now. It just absolutely doesn't make any sense. If you're Mitch Marner, you have to, come to terms with the fact that you're not going to be making more than the captain and the best player on the team, who is Austin Matthews. And if you want to stay and remain a Toronto Maple Leaf, you'll have to make far less than that. And yes, I do think that he'll probably end up getting a raise, whether it's here in Toronto or somewhere else. It might be, hopefully it's not a significant raise if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, but, if they do end up re-signing this player, which I think that the plan is right now to re-sign him, but I think that the Leafs and Brad Treliving are taking their most valuable asset right now, which is time. They're just going to take their time. They're going to wait till the playoffs play out, see how that plays out, and make their decision then. And there is no rush on it. Obviously, I think, you would like to get it done in a regular situation, but I think you have to really see how the playoffs go under this new coach to get a better understanding of what you have moving forward. Because if it's the same old, I can see a situation where they move off of this player. And there's another situation that's, come up over the last couple of days, which we'll get into later in the video. But I think, he has to come to terms with the fact that he's not going to be making more than Austin Matthews. Can he make more on the open market? Probably, yes. I do think that may be true. He's a great player, but you're not going to make more than Austin Matthews on the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, and he's having the best season in recent memory, at least the best start to the season, especially with Austin Matthews being out and him having to kind of carry the load here. And Maple Leafs goal leaders as of November 29th, Mitch Marner is tied with John Tavares. It was a conversation for another video, having an unbelievable year for him. But William Nylander is obviously, you could argue Willie's been the best player on the Leafs. Kind of depends on what side you're taking. I think Marner has played really good both defensively and offensively. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't think maybe the Leafs push it over the finish line with $14 million. I would be tempted to think that they would rather move him at that number depending on what happens here. But the alternative is he walks away in free agency if they don't trade him at the deadline, which we'll get into here in a minute. And I don't know how they view that alternative, because if they go out and they have a decent playoff run, let's say they make the second round, they finally get past the first round again for the first time in a couple of years, and then they go into the second round and they lose in 7 games or something like that. Then you have a much harder decision to make, because then you're somewhere in the middle. He's going to be getting offers from $14 million from other teams for $14 million, sorry. And then you're kind of stuck where you could have just re-signed him maybe for 13.5 halfway through the season or something like that. So it's interesting, But the alternative is what a lot of rumors have going here. Spit and Chiclet said this: would you trade Marner for Mikko Rantanen? And Pierre LeBrun said the agents typically emphasize the percentage of the cap rather than a fixed amount, which could push Marner's ask above Matthews' AAV. For comparison, Mikko Rantanen with the Avalanche faces a similar situation as the team as Nathan McKinnon at 12.6. He believes he can earn 14, and Marner's value might follow a similar trajectory. The Leafs face a tough decision balancing their salary structure while ensuring they retain one of their top stars. And then, rumors, reports starting to fly about maybe why the Leafs could be interested in a swap. And it doesn't have to necessarily be for Mikko Rantanen. It definitely makes sense. We'll dive into it in a minute here. But if they don't think they're going to re-sign him, do you think there's a world where they trade him at the trade deadline in exchange for a player that still helps them win right now, but someone that they view either a little bit cheaper or part of their core in a different way going forward that can maybe provide some more playoff success that Mitch Marner hasn't given the Toronto Maple Leafs?
I think it's a fun idea, but for the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're probably going to finish the season out with Mitch Marner and see how the playoffs go, and then we'll make a decision there. To make this trade work in season would be a little bit difficult. And on the other side, I don't think the Avalanche want to do that either, because if you look at the comparison in playoff stats, and not just stats, if the eye test, even the last couple of years, Mikko Rantanen is a performer in the playoffs. And that's been the problem with Mitch Marner. We have to see how it plays out this year, right? If it's the same old, I just don't see a world where he can return. And they're going to really base, I think, everything off of the playoffs this year. And, it is a fact. Mitch Marner kind of disappears in every playoff series after game 2. That is a fact. Like, that's not something everyone is pulling out of nowhere. That is a thing that happens every single year. So that's something that they have to look into. And the Leafs playoff success this year, or lack thereof, depending on what happens, I think it mostly falls onto, do they look like they're in games, and did they lose to a better team? Because the last couple of years, I don't think you could say that, right? Maybe Florida, but they didn't look great in that defeat either. So I think this year's playoffs, if they lose in the first round, second round, whatever it is, if they go a little bit deeper, if they lose and it's a great effort throughout, I think that is something that they're going to consider as well, right? Maybe we can re-sign this player because, yes, we lost, but we lost to a better team and they gave it everything they had. So I think everything is going to be hanging on the playoffs, because, again, he's having a fantastic season. I'm not trying to hate on Mitch Marner whatsoever. He's having a fantastic season so far this year, and he's doing it all over the ice, on both ends of the ice, and he is earning a pay raise, I think, at least in the regular season. But it's the playoffs. We're gonna have to see what happens come the playoffs.
Yeah, it's very intriguing, I guess. And the Leafs have been playing a interesting game. We saw a lot of different things continue to go down. You saw a little bit of a Craig Berube comment from a while ago, but you look at Mitch Marner's playoff stats, it gets interesting because they're bad. They're not very good, especially given the Toronto Maple Leafs kind of current structure of their team and how they need playoff success. At this point, a Mikko Rantanen trade would make a lot of sense for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think, and especially given the fact that how they have similar, of course, contract frameworks. They have similar situations in the sense of, obviously, the Avs cap is probably around Nathan McKinnon. It's literally the exact same scenario, just very different, at least playoff performers, and maybe the Leafs would add a sweetener or something like that, but ultimately it's going to be interesting, and whatever the other number ends up being, sorry, I don't want to be stuck in that number if the results are the same at the end of the playoffs. I'm not giving away free dollars until I win playoff games. So if it takes, maybe if Mitch Marner performs in the playoffs this year, maybe that's what pushes it over that $14 million threshold that that he desperately wants, or over, I guess, the 13.5, whatever the 13.2 Matthews is making. But let us know down below what your thoughts are on this. Would you extend Mitch Marner? And if not, was this a trade you would consider? Let us know down below. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you again to Rentals.ca for sponsoring this one. See you guys later.